Welcome back. This morning we have a new episode of our franchise STEM City with Dr. Owais Durrani. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for coming back. I'm really excited about this next episode.
Yeah, I was here in house chatting with KPRC's meteorologist, Carolyn Brown, and fifth grade me was yelling inside and
right.
playing with all the gadgets and asking her all the questions that I wish I would have asked when I was in fifth grade, but I got a chance to do it now.
That's very exciting. Let's take a look at that story.
Well, Caroline, thanks so much for joining us on STEM City. Super excited to see you in person, seeing you on TV so much. And you obviously give us the weather and the forecast, but we're going to flip things around today. We're going to learn about how you got to have this awesome job that you do. And on STEM City, one of our goals is to highlight careers that are science, technology, education, math related, but may not be like the first thing people think of when they think of, those things. They may think of engineering or whatever. You obviously studied meteorology, you studied journalism and math. So let's kind of start there. How did you kind of gravitate towards those subjects, and tell us more about that?
I just always had an infatuation with science and the weather. Really, it started with the weather. Being here in Houston, everybody is impacted by it, whether it's an ice storm out of nowhere, whether it's a hurricane, a tropical storm, flooding rainfall. We flood so easily that growing up here, I was just amazed by it. And then as I was growing up, I just kept pursuing it. And it was a little bit challenging, especially because, when I started high school, I joined our computer programming class and a robotics class, and anyone could sign up for these classes. And I was the only girl in the entire high school in those classes. So that was disheartening, but I actually ended up really loving it, especially because, when you're in high school, that can be a little bit scary to be in that class as the only girl. But it was honestly, it ended up being a really good thing. And then when I got to university studying meteorology, mathematics just was a second nature for it, because a lot of people see us on TV giving the weather, but they don't realize that we are actually scientists as well. We come in, we make our own forecasts, and in order to make a forecast, you have to understand the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is fluid. And so a lot of people don't think about it that way. It's really like a big fluid space that you're forecasting for, not just at the surface level, but higher up the different layers in our atmosphere. So in order to do that, you end up using a lot of math, at least in college you do. And so I got the mathematics part of my degree because I was about 1 or 2 classes away at that point. I was like, oh, let's do it. Yeah. Let's tack on some math. And I've just always loved it. I think it's so cool, and I wish more girls did STEM.
Absolutely. It sounds like such an amusing field. So just kind of going back to a degree, in particular meteorology degree, is that a 4-year degree? And then what are kind of some of the breakdowns in it? Like, it's mostly topics that kind of cover climate and the atmosphere and some math and physics, or is it other things?
Yeah, so actually meteorology, there's so many different degrees you can get. So I went to a research-based university. I went to the University of Oklahoma. So in the building that I studied in, there was the Storm Prediction Center, the National Severe Storms Laboratory, the Radar Lab, National Weather Service, Norman. So my university was really based on research and on forecasting severe weather, because it was in Oklahoma. Yeah. So it was a 4-year degree to get my meteorology degree, but across our team, we have a lot of people who have done different ways, because there's also 2-year degrees you can get. There are certificates that some people can get as well, but no matter how you do it, it's all just a bunch of nerds appreciating the atmosphere. Yeah. As for classes though, I will say it was pretty tough. At OU, the meteorology school, we took everything: Calc 1, 2, 3, 4, partial differential equations, cloud physics, atmospheric dynamics, thermodynamics. Oh wow. It was very math and science heavy.
Yeah, I'm not good at numbers, so I'm kind of, that scares me when you talk about that a little. Yeah. So obviously, like, when I think of a meteorologist, I think of you, right? Turn on the TV, you're telling us about the weather and how the week's going to look. I imagine there's other pathways in meteorology where you can work in different workplaces, maybe be more research-based. Could you share some of those things with us?
Absolutely, because it's actually a huge portion of meteorologists aren't on TV. With the school I graduated from, really I think only 3 people in my entire grade decided to pursue broadcast meteorology. The rest of them are all operational. So there's a lot of different types of meteorologists. You could be a forecaster for the National Weather Service. You could be an emergency manager. So a lot of meteorologists work for cool things like music festivals, because you have to have that backup plan.
Yeah.
What if there's a lightning storm? There's also meteorologists that work at the airport. They work for oil companies. So there's a whole plethora of things you can do with a meteorology degree. This one's just the most glam.
Yeah, and absolutely, it kind of goes to show you that, you know, if you're really into planes, you can do meteorology and then kind of work in that setting, or music festivals or whatnot. It doesn't have to be this one path where you're just stuck in a box. Obviously you've studied math and physics and all these other concepts. Do you use those kind of things on a day-to-day basis? Obviously you're not calculating equations like you did in college, but some components of those things when you come into work each morning?
Absolutely. So thankfully I'm not deriving any equations anymore. You know, you kind of get through that part when you're in school, but now we use the concepts that we've learned. So it just helps me better visualize things, better explain it. But day to day, it looks a lot different than from when I was in college.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the fun part. We're going to check out some of your gadgets and whatnot, and you're going to show us some stuff. So where should we start?
Ooh, so we can start with the computer software system that we use. So we actually have 2 different systems here. So this is the main one. This is going to be called WSI. So this is where we come in and we can build all of our graphics. And so it's really fun because we will make our forecast and then we decide what is the most important thing, what's going to impact people, what do they need to know. And then with that information, we now get to build graphics. So there's also a really big creative side to making these forecasts because, you know, there's a lot of different ways to show the same information.
Yeah.
So if we're showing the tropics, for example, we now have to decide, okay, we have Tropical Storm Otis here. Are we gonna show people sea surface temperatures? Do we wanna show them winds? Do we wanna show them how high up in the atmosphere it's going? And we get to make all of these decisions. So it's very fun. And then we also have another graphic software. This is going to be called Baron Lynx.
Okay.
And the Baron Lynx software system, they're known for having just a phenomenal radar. And so we use this a lot because one basic of forecasting, you can't say what's going to happen in the future if you don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And so we use this system for a lot of ground observations and ground truth. And so we can look at it and see, okay, what are the storms doing right now near Matagorda Bay? And what the storms are doing here is going to have an impact on us in the afternoon. So if we notice a lot of these storms, they're hitting I-10 and they start to fizzle. Yeah. Okay, well then we need to consider that with our forecast for tomorrow, because if there's no atmospheric change, why wouldn't it do the same thing?
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. There's like this wrong stereotype that, hey, for meteorologists, the computer kind of tells you everything and you just put it up on the screen and talk about it. But obviously, like you're saying, you're kind of looking at patterns and whatnot. What are some of the other components of you interpreting and working with these gadgets to help you with your job?
Yeah, here, if you scoot that way, I can show you. So there's a lot of different websites that we do use. And I think a lot of people assume that all we do is look at models and then we just pick whatever model we want. Yeah. But in reality, a lot of these models, they tend to have a bias, and they also don't nail Southeast Texas every time. Because when you look at the United States, we have so many different microclimates. Yeah. Even here in Southeast Texas, we have our coastal areas, and then once you get closer towards, let's say, Austin, totally different terrain, totally different trees, and this is all going to have a big impact. So a lot of it does come from experience, and then a lot of it comes from just recognizing a pattern. We've seen this before, this is what happened last time. So we take a look at all of the different models, factor in the bias, and then pick the forecast that we think makes the most sense, especially historically.
Yeah, really cool. And obviously that's a lot of analytical thinking, which I imagine all that science background kind of helps you work through and do and make sure that we get the most accurate information. That area looks cool. Can we go over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So after we've made all of our graphics, then we come and we're going to be presenting our graphics. So this is the green screen, and this is where we'll do most of our forecasting. So when you see us on TV, we're going to be actually standing right here, looking at a camera, no map behind us, but as you'll notice, it does show up here. So what's happening is they're taking everything that this bright green color and they're replacing it with our graphics.
Really cool.
Really cool. And what's nice too about this, because technically it's all a green slate behind me, we have software programs to where it can track the tip of our finger, and this allows us to do live tracking if we're on air, covering radar, doing hurricane coverage. So it actually allows it to be more interactive than just a monitor.
Nice. And I guess, is that the reason, like, so I see a monitor here, is that the reason you just don't use that all the time, that there is more kind of, you know, dynamic components to it that can change as you're kind of going through the broadcast?
Yeah, so this will allow us to stay on air for a long time because we can zoom in, zoom out, change whatever contour we're showing, whether it be temperature or dew points, versus this system is more just clicking through like a PowerPoint slideshow.
Yeah. And like, say someone's a noob like me, and you're trying to get used to working with a green screen. It would take how long to kind of learn to use it? A few weeks, few months?
I think it just depends. I mean, we've had interns come in here where they're practicing every day, and by an hour, you can tell a total difference. So try to point to Tomball on that map.
Yeah, right there.
You see?
Yeah, so you kind of get used to it, and then you can kind of see yourself up there, which is, I guess, kind of helps you.
So we have this side monitor so you can always see what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And then just because it's really fun, we have to show them what you look like.
With just my head.
Just a floating head.
That's really cool. My body's a part of Louisiana right now.
Yes. Did you know only 1 in 4 meteorologists on TV are female? And only 8% of chief meteorologists are girls, especially because statistically, girls and boys, they test the same. Sometimes girls even test better. But then when you look at the numbers, a lot of girls don't pursue science because their friends aren't doing it. They're afraid of being perceived as being weird. But we really need more girls to do it because 8% of chief meteorologists being female, we can do better.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can do a lot better.
And obviously, a big part of them is, you know, little girls seeing you on TV. What are some other things that we, as I guess, a society, can be doing to increase those numbers and get them interested? Well, they are interested already, but making sure that interest doesn't die down as they go into high school, college, and whatnot. I
think it's just good to encourage people to be themselves. If you have a passion that you think is cool, pursue that passion, because there are going to be other kids just like you who also love that passion. They might not be at your high school, they might not be in your city, but they are out there, and every single science group is really close knit. So there is a community out there waiting for you. You just need to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the internet these days, it's that much easier. You obviously alluded to, you know, being the only girl in your robotics kind of organization and whatnot. Obviously, as you kind of went through college and whatnot, I imagine there was some challenging times, some difficult times. What were some things that you could share with someone who may be watching that, you know, maybe in a really hard calculus class or whatnot, or maybe thinking about going down that road and saying, hey, I don't know if I can kind of make it through that. What were some things you learned that you could share that would help those individuals?
I would say the most important thing is just give it a try. There's a lot of things that are scary. There's going to be a lot of things that might be holding back on, but just give it a try. Even if you're thinking, what if I'm not smart enough? What if I'll never make it? The worst thing that can happen is you might not quite get there, but you can always try again. So a lot of these classes too, they are very difficult, but as long as you study hard, you work together with friends, you ask for help, people can get through it. And I got through it, and I definitely had a lot of moments where I was like, oh my gosh, these dreams are scary. What if it doesn't work out? And I'm so glad that I found out, because it did work out. And it can.
Yeah, you just got to try and kind of look for role models like yourself. Any other closing thoughts or words before we wrap it up?
I think one misconception about meteorologists on TV is people assume that we are always outgoing, we're not camera shy. A lot of kids might think, I could never do that. I don't like speaking to a crowd. But in reality, our studio is empty. Like, you've been in here, it's empty. Like, when we're giving the forecast, it's just us, our graphics, our forecasts, a cameraman, of course, all of the production behind the scenes. But it really doesn't feel like public speaking.
Yeah.
It feels like you're just talking to a friend at home. I know my mom's always watching, so it just feels like you're talking to your mom.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, if it's something that you truly love, which obviously in your case it is, you can become so fixated and focused on that thing that you don't even realize there's a camera there, or there may be people watching and whatnot. You're just talking about the thing that you train to do and you're passionate about. And like you mentioned, you could obviously work at a music festival, or get on a NOAA plane or something, or do other things where it doesn't even have to involve a camera. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for joining STEM City. I learned so much. My 5th grade me is super excited and still screaming right now. But thanks for sharing kind of a day in the life, and looking forward to seeing you on TV soon. Absolutely, you too. Love this segment. Thank you.
In 5th grade, did you think you were going to be a meteorologist?
Yes, I definitely did. I thought it was going to be an astronaut, firefighter, meteorologist at one point. That's all of us, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. As you mentioned, you learned so much during this conversation with Caroline. Was there one thing, though, that really stuck out that you were like, wow?
There was. It was so when I was coming in, there was a group of kids leaving, and she said, when she was talking with these kids, they were from school, she said, who wants to be a meteorologist? And like no one raised their hand. And it was like, who wants to be on TV? And like a bunch of them raised their hand. Yeah. And she said, they don't realize that being a meteorologist on TV is being a scientist and studying those science subjects, and that's STEM. And that's what the whole goal of the show is, right? Showcasing these things that we see as cool in society and fun and interactive, and then showing that a lot of these things are based in science. And so when she said that, I was like, wow, that's cool, and we got to continue to push and show these careers and inspire kids.
And I'm so glad she mentioned it in the story, and that is, if you go to be a meteorologist, it's not just broadcasting that you're able to do. Governments, city, local, state, they can employ they're looking to employ meteorologists. She mentioned a few others. So, it's extremely diverse, and there is a ton of opportunity, and it all comes back to STEM.
Yeah, 100%. Even in my job, I go to the hospital, I practice medicine, but there's ER docs doing all kinds of stuff out there. And so every job has these various pathways that you can take. It doesn't have to be this linear path that sometimes we learn about in school. Okay, Dr. Owais Durrani, you will be coming back next month for a really exciting story. I'm not sure we can share the details yet. Can we? Or? It has to do with planes.
There we go. Yes. There we go.
We'll leave it with
There's
the
tease for you. Okay, awesome. Good stuff. Thank you very much, sir.